We are back for another edition of Meteorology Lab, and we've had rain again. This weekend, it seems like we get most of our rain on Saturday and Sunday, and that was again the case this weekend. And what you see overhead, this is anvil debris, bases at about 20 to 25,000 here, consisting mostly of ice crystals. And the live look outside at this time, not much different. So let's see, what do we have here? Yeah, just gradually breaking up the cirrus overcast. And the weather pattern we have in this part of the country is unusually mild for this time of year. Normally we have the Gulf wide open, southeasterly winds coming up, and pretty solid southeasterly flow shown on all the plots. But what we have instead is kind of this very weak easterly flow. And that's a consequence of the unusually strong Hudson Bay vortex. And we see it right there. This is an anomaly chart here on the left side. The coloring is whether the heights are above or below normal for this time of year. So blue here, this is significantly below normal. So very strong circulation here, centered around Baffin Island, Victoria Island, Devon, just basically around the high Arctic right there. And that in turn means increased circulation around the periphery, especially on the west side right there. And that'll tend to bring cold air masses southward into the Great Lakes area, and they happen to find their way south and southwest into Texas. And the consequence that we get down here, we get these old washed up boundaries that just kind of gradually pile down here. It's kind of a dumping ground for boundaries, and what we've got right now, just a very weak boundary through this area, and consequently we're getting the afternoon convection along that axis. And then further west, we got more of the upslope flow in the Texas high plains right there in eastern New Mexico, and we can see dew points up to 60 all the way back to the Davis Mountains, almost to Tucumcari, and all the way up to Lamar and La Junta, which is kind of unusual. Normally we see 40s and 50s up in that direction. So we are pushing the moisture not only... Well, we are pushing the moisture west. So, yeah, most of it heading up to West Texas right now. The big news right now, though, we talked a bit about the aurora on the webcast on the last webcast on Friday. We had a solar flare Thursday evening, and that is making it into the Earth's orbit. And what that is that's a big mass of charged particles that get picked up by the magnetosphere. And what we're expecting tonight, looking at the ionospheric models here. Let's see if I can get this to go here. Okay, during the daytime, pretty active. We can see we've got KP index at the very top there, 6, which means if it was nighttime, we could see auroras in pretty far southerly latitudes. Most of it, though, on the other side of the Earth. And then moving ahead to the current time, this is about right now. So we're still at 6. It's a very active night. You don't have to rush outside. You can wait for it to get dark where you are, because as you can see, by 10 to 1 a.m., things are going to be looking pretty good tonight. And it looks like we're going to see the aurora as far south as Pennsylvania, New York, Cincinnati, Chicago, South Dakota. And that's just a very... it's a very crude estimate. We could see that as far south as maybe the central U.S. So if you're in that area, definitely go outside and take a look. And even here in Texas, I'm going to go out and check around maybe 11 or 12 and see what's going on. I'm not expecting to see anything, but you never know. And then continuing overnight, we're going to see the aurora diminish. The pre-dawn hours, we go down to 5, KP down to 5. So definitely very good for the Great Lakes area. And then it kind of recedes back to the normals that you see here. And then tomorrow night, we're down to 3s. So tonight is the big opportunity to see that aurora. Although if you're in Canada, you're going to have some luck there. And they've seen the aurora as far north in the southern hemisphere as New Zealand. Let's run that loop. We never really take a look at the southern hemisphere, and I know Mick there is probably happy to see this. And I was surprised when I looked at this earlier. Look how extensive that area is and how close it's coming to Tasmania, Melbourne, and the Great Australian Bight right there. So good chance of seeing the aurora. Of course, that time has already passed. It's already getting to be day there, but let's see what happens tonight. Maybe another shot right there around Tasmania, but we're only down to KP4 down in that region. And then we go back to just the regular aurora ring right there. Back to 2s and 3s. Okay, heading back to the weather, let's see. I went ahead and ran a trajectory analysis for DFW. I was kind of curious where the air masses are coming from. The red is the lowest parcel. This is about 500 meters off the ground, like the top of a skyscraper building. Looks like the trajectory has come from the Red River and kind of recirculated up to Arkansas and has come back to Dallas. Same thing at 1500, so very stagnant pattern in Texas, but up at 5500, which is about the 500 millibar level. You can see we've got this trajectory coming from Canada. So that's the northerly flow coming out of the northern plains. And you also see the descent as you go from the 14th of July, 15th, on up to tonight here at DFW. So there's that subsidence sinking from about 7,000 meters all the way down to 5,500. That means warming aloft. So I would expect to see that subsidence inversion on the soundings and the mid-levels. And that means a reduction in capping there. Not much going on as far as severe weather. We had a marginal risk there for central Illinois. I decided to pull up the Lincoln radar, and just shows a kind of a disorganized area of showers east of St. Louis, right there along Interstate 70. Yeah, Interstate 70. I don't see any very strong reflectivity gradients here, so not going to expect much in terms of severe weather, except maybe a little bit of small hail, maybe a little bit of localized wind gusts. And who's bombarding me with texts here? Okay, yeah, it's my cousin. I'll get back to him a little later. All right, let's see here. 500 millibars, we've already done that. 250 millibars, you can see the ridging across the high plains, and there it is. Medium wave ridge right there from the Dakotas up to Manitoba. Here in the plains, we're downstream from that ridge, so no wonder we have sinking motion. This is a very good area for subsidence when you're downstream from a ridge like that right there. But we have a trough coming on shore. There it is, working into British Columbia, and that also means a cool air mass working inland. There's a closer look at the 200 millibar chart there. The upper level high centered over the Cheyenne area, so probably very warm weather, very dry weather there, most likely. And elsewhere, just kind of a northerly flow. There's the 500 millibar chart showing pretty much the same thing. There's the 500 millibar ridge over the Dakotas. 700 millibar, we're seeing the capping kind of receding a little bit. And typically this time of year we see it positioned more in the northern plains, kind of like that. And we see less of the capping here in Texas. A 50 millibar chart, not much as far as moisture. Let's see here. 19/8, that's going to be a dew point of about 52. So moderate moisture there. The Gulf of Mexico becomes a little less important as a moisture source region. We can pull a lot of evapotranspiration out of the Midwest and the eastern U.S., so an eastern trajectory like that, not much of a problem there for moisture. Okay, let's see here. Satellite images. I pulled up a satellite image for South America because there was a rare snowfall in Santiago yesterday morning. They're located right in here. And I pulled up the METARs for that station. And this is that rare snowfall that you see right here. You can see the visibilities went down to about 5 kilometers. Rain and snow, 34 degrees right there, and yeah, there's that rain and snow. It started out as heavy showers, so what we had really there was a cold front sweeping through on the 15th. And let's see if we can take a closer look at that front. This is the chart on the 15th. Okay, no, that's actually the 14th. Yeah, this is the setup. And Santiago is located right here. And you can see this little band working its way northward. Now, the patterns in the southern hemisphere, it's going to be a little bit confusing to us in North America, but one trick you can do, take it in your favorite paint program like this. In this case, we're using Paint Shop Pro. And what we do is we flip it. We go to Edit, Image, and Flip. Then we can kind of pretend that this is the northern hemisphere. So now things make a little bit more sense. You can see the characteristic comet cloud here. So we know that this area back here, an area of very strong cold air advection. We expect to find maybe an included low right in here, maybe a new baroclinic low right underneath this cloud shield, and maybe a warm front kind of like that. And then the warm sector is going to be right here. And then you can see kind of like what looks like maybe a little bit of subtropical cloud. Okay, so what does that mean on the chart? Well, we just transpose that. It's easy enough to do. There's the cloud shield right there. Occluded low is going to be right off the coast. This is the baroclinic area right there. So a warm front is going to be located right here in Argentina. Let me bring up the state lines here, or the country lines. Okay, gradually coming up here, and let's see. I'm trying to find Uruguay. There's Paraguay, Argentina, and Montevideo, Uruguay. It's going to be somewhere in here. So we'll zoom out, and anyway, there's the system coming for Santiago, and that's the baroclinic area. There's the warm front, and then the cold front. Sweeping southward, very strong area of cold air advection coming down the backside. So that's how we read the satellite images in the southern hemisphere. So we know that cold front on the 14th on its way northward, about to sweep there into Santiago and bring unusually cold weather to that part of South America. So we'll forward up one day here. 15th, this is when we had the snow. A lot of orographic clouds here. System already on the other side. And then today, 16th, it's already out in the Atlantic here. And we have this large area, looks like maybe of warm air advection. Probably a cold air mass parked there near the surface. Oops. bring that down a little bit. Okay, probably a little bit of cold air right there over northern Argentina. And then another way we can look at that chart is to... I've got so many windows open, I'm having trouble finding the temperature anomaly chart, so let me try to find that. Yeah, I had a temperature anomaly chart here and I've lost it. Anyway, if I find it, we'll get back to that. So let's head back to the U.S. Looks like quite a bit of moisture here across the southern U.S. A little band of dry air working its way southward. And as we get these dry air masses working southward out of Canada, not much of a surprise, we're going to entrain a lot of dry air into the back of that system. So let's check out the frontal analysis here in this part of the U.S. Definitely looks very active in the Pacific and up to Alberta and Saskatchewan. There's a front there in the Pacific Northwest on its way eastward. And where to put that warm front? I don't know, maybe something like that. Pretty quiet here in the central and southern and eastern U.S. And you can see a little bit of that troughing right here across Alabama, Mississippi. That's one of those old stalled fronts across the southern U.S. So we'll take a quick look at the sounding for Fort Worth. And there it is. Give me just a second. Okay, so you can see the dry air there and a little bit of subsidence in the upper levels. You can see because of that warm air up above 600 millibars. But a little bit of moisture up above that. And then the wind showing a little bit of easterly and northerly flow. So very unusual for this time of year. It's definitely been a mild summer. Okay, so this is probably a good time to take a look at chat. And before I do go any further, I wanted to thank David Moore for this contribution. He mentions he had a astronomical observatory there in his backyard there in the Metroplex in DFW. Took these pictures from the city, NGC 7635, and that's quite a distance away, 7,100 light years, but I think that is going to be inner galaxy, the diameter of the Milky Way being about 40,000 light years. But much further away, spiral galaxy, 43 million light years. So that's going to be about 1,000 times further away from 1,000 times further than the edge of the galaxy is from here. And a lot of these stars that you see, these are within about 100 light years of Earth. 100 to about 1,000. So these are inner galaxy. We're not going to see individual stars like that outside of our galaxy unless it's a supernova. So these are very close, and that gives you some idea of the distances all the way to these distant galaxies. So I appreciate that, David Moore, for the astronomy clips. And I did get a couple of other contributions last week, but I kind of lost track of where they came from. Checking here, I had a clip, MVI 1634, and I couldn't figure out who that was from, so I apologize if I did not put your clip up. I just kind of lost track over the weekend. Okay, so we'll take a look at the forecast and see what things look like over the next few days. And before we go much further, let me take a look at the chat. Sue M here looking for that aurora there in Indiana. Lloyd McCarter, good evening from North Little Rock. I would definitely try to look for the aurora even there in Little Rock. No aurora in Southern California, but can always give it a try there. Ryan Toomey's pounded by severe weather early this morning. Ron Chalfont says Ryan's getting all the weather. Dave says, hi all. Ryan, afternoon heat turned up 101 heat index in Florida after the storms. Greenville weather in South Carolina have not stopped getting rain, 4 inches. Michael Burrell is here. David Berghoff, Kevin McKinney, Mike Estwick. Dave caught a nice cold core funnel in the Calgary area. Ryan says tropics are quiet. Just a few waves moving through the Atlantic. Pacific still remaining very active. Yeah, we've got that one hurricane, and that was a Cat 4 last night. Let me switch over to that one. Fernanda. And it's weakened Category 3. So heading west-northwest, but winds right now up to 125 knots sustained. And that pressure, 957, that's a little ways down there. 920 to 910 is getting into the big leagues. So not quite a Cat 5, but still a lot of action. Burl H is here, and Ryan says the heavy monsoon rains have hit Arizona. Severe flooding in the mountains and drowning deaths around Payson. David Moore's got 97 in DFW. Yeah, we've got 76 here. We had rain move through earlier. Everyone in Calgary going out to capture the northern lights from Dave there. And David Moore says he agrees with whoever said earlier this week that the person who invented air conditioning should win the Nobel Peace Prize. So Mike Estwick saying hello. Greenville weather asking about South Carolina and the aurora. I can't tell you. You just have to go out and give it a shot. It really depends on how dark your skies are and how much of the northern horizon you can see. And I know there was an aurora back in 2001 or 2002 that we were able to see from Oklahoma, and that was not forecast. They had the northern limit around Illinois, but we were able to see it anyway, so we're not expecting anything really south of Pennsylvania, but again, there's enough uncertainty in these forecasts to where you should check it out anyway. And like I said, I'm going to go out and look myself here. But they are going to be very faint. You have to kind of look maybe with averted vision if you're way down south, and just kind of hope for the best. Mike Estwick asking about the satellite from 1 p.m. I don't know what I'm looking for, but maybe I can pull it up here. I don't know if we can go back to 1 o'clock because if I go back 50 or 40 frames, that's only going to get me back about 2 or 3 hours. So I would have to go off to some other websites, and that would really start slowing down the stream with so many frames coming in. But we can see what's going on out there right now. Looks like storms dissipating there across the Rockies. A lot of orographic activity. This is in the Trinidad area here. Walsenburg into Alamosa. And you can see I brought up about 25 frames, and this only goes back to 23Z. So this is about 2 hours of imagery. Very active, a lot of high base storms there, and the front range located right there. Ron asking about the trajectory graph. That's going to be high split, HYSPLIT. You can put that in a search engine. That's run by NOAA FSL. Carl Berghoff's got a camera arriving. and asking everybody to give me a like, and I appreciate that. John Huntington, watching live tonight, hoping for eclipse forecasts. And I do have something planned as far as that goes. So probably check around for about a week to 10 days from now, when we should do some coverage here. Ryan, pretty far south for the aurora. Mike Estwick is going to try to check it out, and mentioning those towers. Okay, so let's head into the forecast. For the forecast, we're going to look at the GFS. Okay, so we're starting things out tonight. Looks pretty quiet, but maybe a few nocturnal storms in the central Texas area and western Kansas. However, there's not much, I don't think there's much of a low-level jet in place. So I expect the things to be shutting down overnight. Then for tomorrow, heating comes back, and it looks like the main focus is going to be on the I-10 area of Texas. Houston, San Antonio, and maybe Austin, Victoria, out in that area. For Tuesday, most of the action up in the northern plains here, along that front, moving through Canada. So by the time we do the webcast on Tuesday, looks like we're going to have a warm front right up there in North Dakota, and a cold front like that right there. Looks like maybe a little weak MCS along this boundary right here, from about Evansville up to Quincy, Bethany, and Omaha. Things also quiet on Wednesday. You can see a little bit of troughing right here, so maybe some low chances of precip in the central Mississippi Valley. You can definitely see that active monsoon out in Arizona. So a lot of moisture making its way into the southwest U.S. And they definitely need it. It's been kind of dry out there, and they've had that 120-degree heat just about 10 days ago. Friday also looking pretty quiet, and GFS going for some kind of system there in the Florida Panhandle, but things look quiet in Texas, so I think we've got some upper-level ridging building in. Here comes the next front coming southward, driven by this high in Minnesota. By Sunday, a week from now, looks like the leading edge is going to be something like that. You can see that's moving mostly into the Great Lakes that way. So not much of a push into Texas, and in fact it looks rather normal. Then for Monday and Tuesday, things also continuing to be kind of quiet. And then we get up to August 1st, the first August 2017 chart of the season. And not much going on in Texas. Most of the action up in the northern plains, where we have some downslope right there. So probably some very warm weather for the Dakotas at the end of the month. Okay, so I think that's all I got for today. 30 minutes there. There's not much to talk about, so I think we'll just call it a wrap there. As usual, I appreciate you joining the webcast, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good evening, and remember, we got that aurora in the northern U.S., so see if you can check that out after it gets dark, and good luck with that. Take care, and we'll see you tomorrow.